We will not bow down. Let my people go. We will not bow down. Let my people go. We will not bow down. Let my people go.
Well, welcome everybody to the Croydon Constitutionalists here in Purley. So the Taxpayers Alliance are no strangers to Croydon, unfortunately, given the performance of our council in recent years. And we are joined here this evening by Joanna Marchong, the Investigations Manager of the Taxpayers Alliance. Joanna, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So you are the Investigations Campaign Manager at the TPA. Can you tell us a little bit about that role, please?
So my role is a bit of a sweet spot in between research and campaigns. It just means that my purpose is investigations. It's different from the full-fledged researchers that we have because they'll do bigger pieces, whereas I will do the one-off kind of like small-scale media hits. It's actually really rewarding. So I have little projects that I kind of look up on, and I see things in the news and I think, okay, well, this can be followed up on. So then I spend a lot of my time sending FOIs, which are Freedom of Information Acts. Councils, NHS trusts, Quangos will give me the information, Whitehall will even give me the information. And then I spend a lot of time on my spreadsheet and collate them, package them up, and then try and give it to a journalist. So it's a lot of kind of like journalistic work, but I'm obviously working with the TPA, and then that just means I also part of my job is building relationships with journalists and then trying to give them my pieces. And then so that's a kind of researchy side to it. And the campaigns bit is obviously the TPA are kind of known for our bigger campaigns. We have Debt Clock running right now, and that whole process I get involved with as well. So there's obviously a big stage to doing this. There's brainstorming involved. There's writing press releases, getting kind of like media targets, organizing stunts. And I think the main thing that I do, if not the press releases or helping with media things, will be I sometimes will see a paper and I think, oh, we can follow up on an investigation. So then I put in a small scale kind of thing to lead, like a bit of a follow on. So it's not as big as research because they'll get it coverage in multiple maybe news outlets, but my investigations will just be a small reminder that we have this research. And one of those examples are with our like council bins paper. So council bins was a research project that we recently did where it was kind of collating how many bins councils are asking residents to sort their rubbish into. And it's a silly thing, but obviously we're paying a lot for bin services, council tax, and that's something that the council should do. And if they're pushing the pressure onto locals and residents, then it's kind of like, well, we're doing the work for them. And we can also be penalised. So once I realised you can actually get fines for your bins or sorting the rubbish out incorrectly, then I put in a follow-up investigations, just asking how many fines have you dished out, how much have you earned. We found out that Welsh councils do it all the time. And we sold that to like a Welsh news outlet. Well, not sold, but we gave it to a Welsh news outlet. And that's kind of an example of a bit of a follow-up. So it's helping with kind of campaigns-esque things and PR things, and then also doing my own data collection. So that is entirely what my role is.
Excellent. Well, we've seen you speak about some of the weird and perhaps less than wonderful things that our taxes are spent on. What would you say is the most egregious thing you've discovered, or the weirdest way that our taxes are being spent?
I've done a lot of, I think, really good stories for me. I'm one of those people that you need to really engage in. For me, there's obviously easy stories to go for. I've done the EDI roles, which I probably don't need to explain how egregious they are and how not worthwhile they are for public bodies to spend on. And that was 52 million that came to. But one of my favorite ones, I went on Talk TV twice to talk about it. And it was my first media bid. And my first media bid in the studio was the Bulgarian benefit fraud. That was a really good story because I think it's the least divisive thing. It's something that everyone can realize that is actually outrageous. One, it was millions being lost every year by this one like Bulgarian gang. And it was all these things of one, a Bulgarian investigator in their hometown realized there was money coming into the economy and like people were having money to build their houses and get new cars. He actually investigated and alerted the British embassy. So it wasn't even that British authorities were like, oh my God, we're losing all this money. It was actually a foreign entity that alerted us, and then we did something about it. But then as the story unraveled and I spoke about it, I realized that not only did we not pick up on it, it was a long running scam. It was the woman that got arrested, her boyfriend had taught her how to do it. So it was, and then she ran a whole operations with like hundreds of phones and different addresses and friends coming over from Bulgaria to like fraud the government. And obviously this is taxpayer money. They are criminals. They're not people that need benefit payments. They are people that have chosen an easy way to earn money. And it's us essentially paying for it, which was, yeah, it was one of those things where as I kept on reading, I thought this is completely egregious and silly. But one of the investigations that I've done, which is one of my favorite like wacky stories, was the adult cycling schemes. Don't know if anyone saw this, but it was one of my favorite ones to do for myself, because I was one of those people that was online thinking, oh, I want to learn how to ride a bike. I don't know, how can I learn? And it came across that like Croydon Council was offering these schemes. And you immediately think, hold on, why is Croydon of all places, a bankrupt council, putting council tax up, offering these kind of schemes? I found out that they offered a total of 178 courses. And out of those courses, the people that signed up, 1,462 people signed up for courses and then just missed them in the last 3 years, which just goes to show they didn't give figures for how much they spent on it. But we did it for, well, I did it for the entirety of UK councils and found out that 2 million had been spent on these adult cycling schemes, with, again, the same kind of ratio of loads of people signing up and missing them. A lot of the training sessions were one-to-one. And you kind of think, if you're a council and you're offering these schemes, surely you're not doing it on a one-to-one basis because you're trying to get value for money. So it's stories like that which are my favorite to kind of do, because it's like, well, you're never off the clock. I saw this in my personal time where I was thinking, I don't know how to ride a bike. I'd love to ride. And then it was kind of like, hold on, council should definitely not be spending this money.
Absolutely. The Taxpayers Alliance always making me feel cheerier about Croydon Council. Well, we've campaigned in Croydon with the TPA in the past, and I think you've been out around the country talking about council tax hikes. How have you found dealing with the public? What's the public's reaction been when you've been out and about?
It's very varied. So I'll talk about 2 different campaigns that we've done that I've been on the stunt and action days for. We did a stunt in Pembrokeshire County Council, so that's in Wales. We were campaigning there, and we were trying to get them to lower their council tax proposals. So they were trying to raise their council tax by about 15%. So we came and we went for about 3 days with leaflets, kind of like talking to people, putting letters through mailboxes, talking to people in businesses, etc. And we that opinion was wholeheartedly shared with everyone we spoke to. We didn't speak to anyone that said, actually, we don't mind paying higher council tax. And in Wales, they don't have, well, you do get that, unfortunately, in some places. But in Wales, they don't have a limit as to how much you can raise council tax by at a given time. So again, like a 15% rise is monumental for some people. And if you're a household and you're already squeezed and times are tough, getting it increased by that much is ridiculous. And we campaigned for about 3 days and we had a really good response by everyone. We had people coming up to us. We will obviously put them through mailboxes and then on high street, and we were handing, and they were like, oh no, we already have it, don't worry. We had a barcode that would instantly send a letter to the councillor involved, and they had a meeting coming up in a few days after, and we actually got them to have a smaller increase in council tax. So that was a big win for us, and it was very happy, and it was obviously well received, and people followed up on what we were saying for them to do. But if you take, for example, we went to Hampshire County Council, we were campaigning and just bringing a bit more awareness to our biggest research paper of the year, every year, Town Hall Roadshow, Town Hall Rich List, sorry. And when we went, I at least had such a mixed view of how people would receive me. So we had a lot of people like positively coming up to us saying, yes, this is egregious, I can't believe this is happening. And we would have like old civil servants or old council workers come up to us and say, yes, this is my personal experience, this is all happening, I can't believe it, you're doing the right thing. But then on the other hand, like I had at least 2 council workers come up to me and really shout at me and say, you have no idea what you're talking about. This is absurd. This is so silly that you're doing this. You're a right-wing pressure group. You don't know what you're talking about. But at that point, we were literally saying the Director of Culture, Community and Business Services is earning over £500,000 in total. So that's salary, that's benefits, that's kind of like pensions, all of that combined. She's walking away with over £500,000, which you would think to the average person is like, oh my God, I mean, if that job is so good, they're not even chief exec, they're not even director of this council, and they're earning this money. I mean, I was begging them for them to give me a job. I was like, hopefully.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, the tales of our former chief executive in Croydon are legion, and the amount she received as a golden goodbye, as it were, effectively. But so you spoke there a little bit about when you've been out and about meeting people, but sometimes people come to see you, don't they? So we've recently seen some footage of people protesting outside your offices. What was that like for you?
Well, I think it's so hard. Obviously, on the day when it happened, I was so fired up and I was so angry. But I guess it really comes with the territory of working in a job like this. It was interesting, though, to really see that these people, when we came outside, so they had started really early. They were there from like about 8 a.m. and they had like 2 lines of people barricading our offices. And it was, they weren't like peaceful protests. I think everyone has the right to protest and that's within their right. Sure, do go for it. But they were like barring entry from getting into the office. They were genuinely like pushing us back. I remember this is such an awful kind of thing to like reminisce about, but honestly, the way they were like pushing, it was like if you were in a club and you were like trying to move through people and it was like, it's so packed and you just couldn't get through. And they were so rude and they were like shoving and pushing. They made little quips about, oh, the office is closed today, work from home. Where I obviously said, I mean, we have real jobs. We don't work from home ever. 5 days a week we're in. But it was, their messaging was completely off. It was, they were going like ping-ponging between ideas, had no clue about all the organizations that worked at 55 Tufton. They just assumed, oh, 55 Tufton Street, dark money. They had no idea even who we were. They were filming us like trying to get into the building. It was like a big laugh for them. And I think whilst it comes with the territory of working in the job that you do, it's really, really tough when you have a morning like that and you think these people absolutely just hate me. And I remember I tweeted out just saying, this is a complete waste of time. You're not going to achieve anything by doing this. You don't have a clear message. You don't even know what you're really doing out there other than making a lot of noise and just disrupting loads of people and being quite physical with us. And even the hate on Twitter that I got from so many of them was disturbing. It was, they're calling us a kind of like racist, homophobic group. They're saying we're dark money, etc., and calling us all these rude names. But they were completely fine, like calling me out for being a woman working in these think tanks, calling me out for being the ethnicity that I am, going through my LinkedIn, saying, okay, you went to school here, so what do you know about anything? So I thought, at least for me, it was so interesting seeing these people protest on this moral platform of I'm trying to save the planet, I'm trying to, work on behalf of the civilization, society, fighting for this cause, when in reality, if you have anyone opposed to you, you don't view them as a person, you spew hatred at them and you make them feel awful, and then you think you're in the right about things. So those protests are obviously like, they're great for Twitter. I mean, I got loads of likes and follows off of that tweet, so positively speaking, fine. But I honestly don't have time for them, and I don't I remember that day threw so many of us off. It was not a nice experience. We have Claire, who works in our fundraising team. She's a middle-aged woman. I mean, she's not someone that you can push about, and she was pushed about by this crowd. So I think it's quite awful, quite frankly.
Yes, no, it was shocking scenes, and the way they tried to sort of say, you know, as you say, dehumanize you and then just put you into various different compartments and say, well, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. It's just some evil, I don't know, Mr. Burns type character somewhere.
And they had no idea, like when we were coming in, they had no idea what organization we worked for. They had no idea who we were. They were just outside this building that's apparently right-wing puppeteers. And they had no clear message. They had about like 5 different banners saying 5 different things. And they just assumed that we were the worst people ever.
Do you know whether it was one particular group that had organised it? Like Hope Not Hate or something like that?
So I'm not sure. I don't know if Ben, my colleague, knows, but they had an environmental focus.
Right.
So I'm guessing they were after one of the other,
Right.
But they were
just
very
Stop
much
Oil
like,
or Extinction Rebellion or whoever they are.
Well, they were very much like who funds you and that kind of like regular stuff that you
Absolutely. Who funds you? That's always the biggest question for the TPA in particular, I always find. So, you know, what do you say to people who sort of think you just moan about taxes all the time? People who think, well, we do need to have a government, so we do need to pay civil servants lots of money because you need to have the best people, and we do need to spend money on various bits and bobs of research because otherwise they wouldn't happen. What do you say to people who say that sort of thing?
I think, of course, we have to have a government to do all those things. I think in a idealistic world, we would have enough money to do everything that we'd want, and we'd have the best case scenario in all instances. But realistically, we don't have that. We have a government that has failed to manage the public finances for eons now, and it just means that we have to make tough choices, and it has to start somewhere. So I understand that people want their artwork and they want research to be done, but in times when to fix the state that we're in, we have to choose between cutting spending or increasing taxes. I'm sure a lot of people will say, we actually would prefer if you just cut spending rather than increase my taxes, which means I'm going to have less money and I'm going to be worse off. And in order to cut spending, we have to focus on the things that really count. So councils have to focus on following through if they say so. When I say this, I mean, I recently talked about Birmingham City Council. They have 450 million worth of artwork, and they said last year that they would find 300 million worth of savings and they would sell off 750 million worth of assets. Now, if you're sitting on an artwork collection worth 450 million, that artwork, only 1%, well, less than 3% of it is on show. Well, it just means you have it in the reserves. And we all understand that the artwork is a part of their culture, they built it up. But if 1% of it is on show and you have 450 million and you have to sell off 750 million worth of assets, the logical conclusion is tough decisions have to be made and you should sell some of it. We're not saying sell all of it. Tough decisions like that have to definitely be made. Whereas even if other councils, the adult cycling lessons. I mean, another investigation that I did was an investigation into parklets. And these are the kind of like fun, quirky stories that I love because you'll probably be sitting there thinking, well, what is a parklet? And they were a COVID initiative that was brought in because obviously you couldn't sit in restaurants, you had to be outside. They constructed these like benches and areas where you could sit. And they cost money to construct and they now cost money to maintain. Councils said, okay, well, we justify the spending because we need it during a really tough time. COVID, everyone's ill, they want to come out, so we'll do this. But we will then deconstruct it to offset any of the maintenance costs. This hasn't been followed through. I did the investigation earlier this year, 5 million spent on it since COVID, so in the last 3 financial years. And you kind of come to think, well, in this room, did anyone really know what a parklet was? Did you care about it? But they were these low priority projects that are now still costing taxpayers money. And 5 million, I mean, that's not, that might be pennies in the grand scheme of things. But if you think about all the investigations I've done, and it's $1 million here, it's tens of millions here, if we have the same viewpoint that, oh, it's only a small amount of money, well, all these small amounts add up to something. And I'm saying that tough decisions have to be made. We can compromise in some way and we can have research. But I mean, my latest story was that Star Wars is now guiding researchers into how we can be more sustainable in filmmaking. I mean, it's hard for me to even explain because I don't even understand what it is. And yet it's getting about £200,000 in order for it to be studied. It's just ridiculous. I mean, evaluation of an EDI project and how efficient they are getting hundreds of millions. And that's the evaluation alone. So it's baffling that councils can't really, or even government can't even get it together and think, okay, we're in a dire situation, 22 billion black hole. So it would be the logical place to start.
Yes, but I guess it's if it's your own money, you know, you worry about £200,000, let alone 5 million, let alone whatever.
Exactly.
But when it's somebody else's money, and they always run out of someone else's money, don't they? In the end, we've seen that before. So, what are the big campaigns that the TPA are working on at the moment?
The thing we're focusing on right now is definitely our debt clock campaign. Debt is increasing by £4,000 every second. So you can imagine how awful that is. We've made these fact books. So it just has these, it kind of represents how much debt is increasing by fun little ways. So here we have the national debt is equal to paying for every pint consumed in the UK for the next 67 years. I mean, every pint. I mean, yeah. So we're doing that. We've also done some other stunts to do with our debt campaign. We're doing a debt clock roadshow. So we have a massive van driving in a few places in the UK. We started in Kent, and then we did a day in Wiltshire and Hampshire as well. So we're getting a lot of attraction there. It's a massive van with like a digitalized screen of how much debt is increasing by and how it's like a bit of a ticker. So I mean, £4,000 every second is quite crazy for our debt level. And I think it's prevalent right now because of all the spending plans going on. So it is very interesting. And that's what we're focusing on right now. So you should definitely take a look at those things. And we have more things in the pipeline as well for this specific campaign.
Excellent. So how can people get in touch or get involved in any of these campaigns?
Well, it's signing up to our Sunday bulletin. We do a little collation and summary of all the stories that we've covered or done over the week, and signing up to our bulletin would be one of them. You'll also find all our petitions online. So we have Ditch Diversity Demagogues, that's an open petition. Stop the Clock Off, which is about stopping like the 4-day working week, etc. We have a petition about council tax hikes. So that would be a way to find us. Also, we're big on Twitter now. We tweet quite often, and I'm doing my own series of Warm Waste Wednesdays where I single out an exclusive story by me, and we cover it in kind of short form, fun, lighthearted video.
For those of us who are here, we're going to have the opportunity to have a nice Q&A session. But for now, thank you very much.